What a perfect day to have Mike Golic Jr. on the show. Of course, co-host of Golic and Golic on FanDuel Sports Network. All right, that's every weekday morning. Joining us here as we have college football this weekend, but a perfect guest to have on with the news that we had this afternoon. Is it okay for me to say, I think are you the number one sports media member who loves Taylor Swift?
I would give that crown. So my friend Nora Princiati is a staff writer over at The Ringer, covers the NFL, and hosts what I think is one of the preeminent podcasts in the Taylor Swift lore, every single album Taylor Swift. So I would put her and maybe Nicole Arbach over at NBC Sports up above me, but I'm right on the medal stand. I'll give myself that much.
So you heard this news that they're engaged. What was the initial reaction? Who told you? How'd you find out?
So I found out from Nicole. Embarrassingly enough, I got a text. I was doing a pre-taped interview for our show with Nebraska head coach Matt Rule, and I see a text.
Is he excited about the engagement?
I didn't have the gall to ask him about that in the midst of this upcoming. I mean, they play as we're recording this 2 days, which is insane and wonderful, and I can't wait. Oddly enough, at Arrowhead Stadium, home of Travis Kelce, the meeting place where all this took place. But no, I got that text from Nicole in the middle of that, and I'm not kidding you. It's so embarrassing. I got like full body chills when I saw her text and then quickly checked Instagram to see that the announcement was in fact real.
Now, does your father care about Taylor Swift at all? Is the whole family into it?
Most of my family is. Like, my sister and I are huge fans. My sister-in-law, my mom. My dad likes the music. He's not. See, and this is the difference between me and my dad in a lot of things. Like, I can remember going to see the movie Interstellar with my dad, and I walk out of the movie and we're driving back home, and I'm like, hey, man, I'm looking up black hole theory, all the stuff about who they consulted in the making the movie. I'm talking to him on the ride home. He just wanted to go home and get in bed. My dad always self-describes as a mile wide and an inch deep, so he's not here for all the Easter eggs. He's kind of sick of hearing me drone on about all that, but he was very excited for the two of them. You know, Travis Kelce and Jason, being Ohio guys like my dad is, getting to meet them over the years. And my dad just more is so out on the people that sit there and complain about Taylor Swift's place in broadcast and all that stuff. He is anti-dads, Brads, and Chads who have something foul to say about Taylor Swift. So happy to come to the defense there. Maybe not going to be sifting through the countdown clocks and color choices of Taylor Swift's Instagram photos.
How high does this rank, Mike, on the athlete-celebrity marriage? Like, is it DiMaggio, Marilyn Monroe, and then Kelce, Taylor Swift?
Oh, this is above that for sure, I think. I mean, this has got to be number one of the power rankings. I mean, at least in like even if we just siphoned it down to the NFL, like for years you had Tom Brady and Gisele Bundchen, who is an international superstar in her own right. You've got Russell Wilson and Ciara in New York now, of all places, both incredibly famous. But you look at this one. Travis Kelce is a walk-in Hall of Famer, arguably the greatest tight end of all time, multi-time champion with the Kansas City Chiefs, who took the mantle from the New England Patriots as the dynastic team of this era in the NFL. And now he is engaged to the most famous pop star on the planet. I don't know if it gets much bigger and better than that.
Really fun stuff. Glad I was able to connect with you today to get some thoughts on Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce. Where are you this weekend? Because obviously, I know you're going to be dialed in Sunday night, which is what I want to talk with you about. Canes, Irish, you're obviously a Notre Dame alum. Where are you this weekend?
So this weekend, I am a part of TNT's coverage of the Big 12 this year. So I will be in Tucson covering the 1-0 Hawaii Rainbows, making their debut, or their trip, I should say, to Tucson to take on the Arizona Wildcats. So very excited about that one.
Isn't that a great story with the kicker, Matsuzawa, who
Yes.
learned how to kick after attending an NFL game when he was 20 years old, and then he went on YouTube, and YouTube taught him how to be a place kicker.
It's unbelievable. Had the great quote in the post-game press conference when he's up there saying, I'm more nervous about speaking English here at this press conference than I am about the kick that we just made out there. So remarkable moxie from him. You've got a switch-hitting punter on that team. Mike Alejado, the quarterback, who is a freshman coming in here, supposed to be the next guy in a long line of quarterbacks from Hawaii at a place where you've got maybe one of the greatest in the program's history, if not the greatest, in Timmy Chang at the helm for his alma mater. And they managed to go out and get a win against Stanford in week 0 as one of the real cherries on top, and a great story from that weekend that now carries over here to their trip to Tucson. So really fired up for that one. Tons of great stuff, on the Arizona side. Noah Fafita, great quarterback from 2 years ago, a little bit of a down year last year without Teteroa McMillan, but with plenty of great players there. So jacked up for that one, and I will be there getting ready to eventually sweat out later on that weekend the Notre Dame-Miami matchup that's heading to South Beach.
I did yesterday on ESPN Radio. I did a top 5 things that YouTube will teach you. Number 1 is how to tie a tie, right?
Yes. Oh, God. Although I will say, now this was pre-YouTube. I learned how to tie a tie because I was going to like a Catholic high school. So you had to learn that back in the day. But I went through this with my brother-in-law. So my sister was getting married. I was in the wedding party, and we're sitting there in the groom's room getting ready before. And he had the bow tie. And we realized for that, none of us knew how to tie one. So we're all watching on YouTube, trying and failing. We had to flag down one of the bell guys from the front of the hotel to have him come and tie the tie. So YouTube tried. We were just failures there. But yes, that's absolutely at the top of the list.
So how you feeling about Sunday night? Obviously, I'm here in South Florida. The stadium's about 15 minutes from where I live. I'm not going to the game. I'm going to be in Columbus this weekend because college football tailgate. We're doing Ohio State, Texas, which is really great. So I'm going to get home in time for Sunday night. Yep. All right, for Notre Dame, but you're going to be a mess. So what is that going to be like for you Sunday night?
I watch pretty much alone. My girlfriend will be there, but she's seen me already go through a lot of this stuff at my worst, and shares the same football brain. Her fandom's LSU based, so she's going to be fighting her own battle with the Clemson game that weekend. But yeah, I am not a pleasant person to watch Notre Dame football games with. It's the only team, college, pro, in any sport that I actually have a true fandom of. I grew up an Eagles fan, but kind of left that behind when I went through the NFL process. I moved around too much to really have a favorite baseball team as a kid or anything like that when I was growing up. And so Notre Dame is the only school program team that I give my mental health and well-being to week in and week out during the fall. So yeah, I will be a very unpleasant person if this doesn't go Notre Dame's way.
Who can afford, or I guess, who does a loss hurt more in the opening game, or Notre Dame?
I think it hurts both pretty sizably. Now, probably has at least the out of, it's not a conference game for them, while Notre Dame has the scheduling agreement with the ACC in football. It doesn't count there. And so for them, in terms of playoff hopes, doesn't really have an impact, because as long as you can go and win the ACC, you're going to be just fine there. So for Notre Dame, their season certainly front loaded. You've got matchups with USC in the middle of the season that could be one of their last. Boise State, who's still one of the favorites out of the group of 6 to potentially field a college football playoff team. You've got trips to Arkansas, all these other games that'll be good. But in terms of the ranked teams that could be real resume points for Notre Dame, Miami and then Texas A&M after the bye post-Miami are the 2 biggest games on Notre Dame's schedule to start the season. And I just think from a national perspective right now, this is as well regarded as any Notre Dame team I can remember coming back into a season. A lot of outside fans always like to point out Notre Dame overrated by preseason polls, the brand. But this year it really is the depth of a roster that returns so many key pieces outside of quarterback from a team that just authored 3 really great wins on the road to a national championship appearance last year, a head coach that a lot of people are really high on and bought in on. And so Notre Dame, to keep that goodwill going and to show up in an environment like this that's going to be raucous the way it was in 2017, I'm sure, I think that would go a long way in continuing a lot of this goodwill that they're carrying over from last season into this year.
So you're a little bit younger than me. I grew up right in the thick of it. You're a little bit younger than me. How much of the Catholics versus convicts did you experience as a kid?
None. It really, me and Jess Matana were having this conversation the other day on the Echoes, the Notre Dame pod, her and I do, when you look at the timeline of when Notre Dame and Miami were playing, it was the 70s through 1990. And I was born in 1989, so I didn't catch any of that. The next time Notre Dame played Miami was my junior year when we played them in the Sun Bowl. And then we played them once again in my time in 2012 at Soldier Field. And then Notre Dame and Miami played an incredibly forgettable game in 2016 in South Bend. And then we had the 2017 game. Yeah. So I've seen it reignited, but growing up a Notre Dame fan, USC, Michigan, Notre Dame's got a host of rivalries, but those were always the core ones when I was a young fan. When I was a player at school, it was the same way. Miami, when we played them, it was important because you recognize the helmet, you know Miami's place in the lore of college football, especially someone whose fandom was really forged in the early 2000s when you had such great Miami squads, but it wasn't a game that had that same venom to it from the player side as those other rivalries that are a lot more frequent for Notre Dame.
So how do the old heads from Notre Dame talk about the Miami rivalry? Like, how does your father talk about the Miami rivalry?
Yeah, again, it's one where because it had so many good teams and like you said, all the Catholics versus convicts stuff that got built up into it, it was that. But again, it's not a game in Notre Dame fan lore that maybe outside of certain people, my dad, some of the people I'm around there, it's not one that comes up as often. But when it does, we always see, I think because it's a combination of two really passionate fan bases that feel like they've got a lot of history on their side that don't see each other as often. You're from such disparate parts of the country. And so you get a lot of the culture war stuff that seeps into that. And again, for fans of a certain age, I'm sure that's a lot more impactful, but it's never really pierced the bubble of my life in a huge way.
Do you like coming out the gates with the huge game week number 1?
I mean, there's pros and cons. I have former player brain where I don't really care. It's like, tell me who we're playing and we'll go do it. I will say from a preparation standpoint, and it's different for Notre Dame now. Like when I got to Notre Dame, we weren't a very good team. You know, we were a team that was so good. My first 2 years, they fired our head coach in Charlie Weiss, and they hired Brian Kelly. We're okay in 2010, better in 2011, and then we go on that 12-0 run in 2012. And so when people say learning how to win, we were learning that. And that meant, I remember in my time on campus, like, you'd be going into the big game weeks against a team like Miami or USC or Michigan or any of those, and the preparation reflected that extra edge. You knew what time it was. You knew how good those guys were. You were probably with them on the recruiting trail along the way. Like there was all that familiarity. And then at times we would exhale. At least I would feel that sometimes in the preparation against teams that we looked at as maybe lesser opponents or games that didn't have that cachet. This team now, and really through the back half of the Brian Kelly years, is been preparing at a higher level. Now, Marcus Freeman and company have had a couple of these blemishes on their early season schedule against the Marshalls of the world, against Northern Illinois. And so they've got to go out and show this season, hey, we have the maturity to prepare like this every week. But now I think at this point in the program life cycle coming off last year, I'm fine with it, especially for Notre Dame's standpoint, because they do have all the continuity. Like, yeah, you got a quarterback that's walking into this green, but he's driving an armored car into this thing. And so I'm very curious, especially in the portal day and age on the Miami side of things. Like, there are a lot of important players that are new faces from different schools and key positions like secondary, like the wide receiver room that, yeah, I mean, including quarterback, who's a veteran, who's got experience in big games. But how quickly does that come together in the college ranks where you don't have a preseason, you don't have preseason games the way the NFL does? I think it's kind of a fascinating subplot of this game.
Will the Notre Dame fan travel well this weekend?
I'm sure they will. I mean, Notre Dame travels pretty well for most everything. I mean, we sent 30,000 people to Ireland a few years ago. So I'm sure it'll be well represented down there. I mean, especially after 2017. I mean, right, wrong, or indifferent, that one's going to be stuck in a lot of people's craws. So I'm sure they'll be well traveled down there. A lot of them, I mean, I know Miami's Twitter account not having the greatest day getting community noted because they mentioned Notre Dame running out of luck the last time they were in Hard Rock Stadium, when in actuality, the last time they were in Hard Rock Stadium was one of my favorite victories of my lifetime against Penn State in the game with the Jeremiah Love touchdown run that I probably don't go a week without watching. So I do think it'll be a really cool environment there, and I'm sure there'll be plenty of blue and gold.
Lastly here, Mike, college football playoff format. Did you love it last year? And what do you make of the nonsense about expanding?
I liked it a lot more than I thought I was going to last year. I look at most of this stuff as a money grab, like most of the decisions made in the sport, but I think underestimated how much expanding to 12 would expand that conversation, especially at the national level, the way that we cover this. Like, it forced us all to talk about more teams further into the season than we would have in the past. And I think that's a good thing. I would like to see it stick at 12 for a little while. Like, we don't even know what this looks like over a larger sample size. We got a lot of exciting stuff. The home games were awesome. Like, I was back in South Bend for that Indiana game. That was electric. And I've been to a ton of games there, played a ton of games there. And that was such a unique environment created by this format. And I just want to see what it looks like over a longer sample size before we add more teams, add more games, change the format up. I mean, I'm not even taking seriously that Big Ten 24-28 team monstrosity that I think is just a smokescreen and a trial balloon to make 16 feel more palatable. So I would like to see a little bit of consistency because I think the sport needs it. We've had so much change over the last number of years. We had a 10-year sample size of the 14 playoff, and it produced a lot of great moments. It produced a lot of duds, and we worked through it. And we got to a point now where I think people are happier with an expanded field. I'd just like to see the sport have something consistent in its life for a little bit in the midst of a sea of change.
Excellent job, Mike. Tell everybody again how they could watch and they could hear everything you got going on.
Yeah, Golic and Golic, 3 to 5 Eastern on FanDuel Sports Network, Monday through Friday. Me and Pops chopping it up there. Ton of fun. You can catch me and Jessica Smetana doing a Notre Dame podcast, certainly all sports, but definitely heavy football during the fall. The Echoes, at the Echoes ND Pod, wherever you follow on social media. Check out our YouTube channel there. And then, like we mentioned off the top, I'm going to be in the Big 12 college football booth on TNT this year. So fired up for that. Me, JB Long, Coy Wire, and Allie LaForce working the sidelines. Going to be a ton of fun this year.
Awesome. Always good catching up with you, Mike. Thanks so much for hanging out with us.
Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.